All right, we will call this meeting of the Special Permit Granting Authority to order. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. Quincy City Council, acting in its capacity as a special permit granting authority, conduct a meeting on Monday, February 1st, 2016 at 7:25 in the Great Hall, 1305 Hancock Street, to review C-Mart's application for development at 10-40 Haven Street. This was formerly known as Council 2013035. Councilor Kane.
Present.
Councilor Carroll.
Present.
Councilor Devon.
Present.
Councilor Forrest.
Present.
Councilor Yang.
Present.
Councilor Palmucci.
Present.
President Hughes.
Present.
We have 7 members.
All right. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. I believe the solicitor is here. Solicitor Timmons.
Good evening, Madam Chair,
Good evening.
and members of the SPGA. I don't know that this is on.
It is.
It's
It's more
on?
volume, actually,
Okay,
but not from you, from the line.
right. Tonight, we're convened really for a discrete question. It's not to deal with any components of the permit. As I think you're each aware, the permit has been ordered by a judge of the land court on a second remand to issue. And it has been sent back to this body solely for the purposes of considering mitigation. The work to that end is underway in terms of looking at mitigation options, and the parties will then try to determine jointly what's acceptable, and the goal is to make a recommendation to this body so that there is a joint plan submitted by the parties, the applicant and the city, in regard to mitigation. That's going to take some time, however. So the request this evening before you is, in order to protect the city's position in the litigation, it's solely to take the step of filing a notice of appeal. Now, in doing that, I used the term at the meeting of the council body when I previewed this issue, that this measure would be prophylactic in nature. I had explained to you that the applicant has filed a motion in the case to obtain their costs, and another little post-judgment thing that's not really germane here, before a final judgment enters. So they filed something to, as I'm using the term, protect their position. They call me ahead of time. I have spoken at length on a couple of occasions with Mr. Murray, the litigation counsel for C-Mart, and explained what we were doing and why, what I was going to be doing tonight in front of the body. And they understand it. This is nothing more than making certain that your position as the SPGA is as protected as possible. We don't intend to go forward with the appeal, although, to the extent I believe there may be merit, we could discuss that in the future, but I think the point now is more to try to work directly with the applicant in light of the judge's order. The applicant has already had some preliminary discussions, I understand. I should say a representative. I know the applicant was present, or the principal, Mr. Fang, but his representatives have already met once with the mayor and had some discussions about what they might be doing with the project. So they've already talked about some potential modifications. We would like to talk to them about what mitigation measures may be possible, and that discussion will be underway as soon as Mr. Fang's team. I had wanted a couple of them to be here this evening, but one of them's away on vacation, a key member of the team. So they don't have representatives here this evening, which is fine. I told Mr. Murray I'd report to him tomorrow. So my request of the body is that there be a motion that the motion simply indicate that the body supports the filing of a notice of appeal. And you need not get into any further action beyond that, but I'll represent to you this evening that other than filing the notice of appeal, I'd be taking no further action in the litigation. My job now, moving forward with other representatives of the team from the mayor's end that have worked on the project, would be to focus on mitigation, not litigation. And that's what I assure you will do. But I respectfully recommend to you as a body that this is an appropriate measure. It's a fairly simple one, and that you should take it just to protect the position as we move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Timmons. Is there a motion? Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Anyone? Councilor Palmucci.
Thank you, Mr. Timmons. Good evening. No,
Pardon?
good evening.
Good evening. Yes,
So we do some pleasantries before we begin.
that's fine.
I'll skip them next time.
I'm sure it'll be brief exchange.
Sure. Yeah, just very quickly in the
Let's get
beginning.
right to it.
We've had this conversation about the appeal outside of the chamber, and I've,
In a very appropriate manner.
in a very appropriate manner, right, with far less pleasantries. And I'll express it again. I'm concerned on two fronts. One, I'm concerned that after the many years that this project has been in contemplation, there isn't some better idea of what mitigation could be done to improve that area. This body, the SPGA, in two instances, heard testimony from dozens, perhaps hundreds of residents via phone, via email, letter, and in-person testimony that that area has traffic problems, pedestrian safety problems. And the fact that, regardless of the permit, the fact that nobody took all of that information and said, hey, gee, what can the city do in the future to make things better down there, unrelated to the project, is shocking to me. Never mind in relation to the project in the event that this case wasn't decided in our favor, which it ultimately wasn't. How long do you think it will take to determine what mitigation is necessary in that area and would be appropriate for us to add to the permit? Because we don't have a choice. The judge said we have to approve the permit. The only option we have is whether or not to add mitigation, which I think we all would be in favor of. So how long will it take before someone makes a recommendation to us relative to mitigation?
Well, I'm not sure, because it's not just coming from our side. It's coming from, and I want to correct a misperception. You had alluded to something in email to me, and I wasn't quite sure what you meant, but I'm not sure we heard that no one has considered mitigation. That was worked on for like a 6.5 to 8 month period from the close of a hearing by this body in June all the way through to the final vote in November. Mitigation's been worked on extensively by both parties. The discussions have occurred. What happened, what was recorded in the decision was that the SPGA didn't consider or determine mitigation measures, and that was because the SPGA rejected the permit.
No, I know, what I'm talking about is the remand order told us we have two options: approve the permit or approve the permit with mitigation, right?
The current one, yes,
Yes.
that's what we're back to.
So what's before us now is we can approve the permit with no mitigation, or we can approve it with mitigation.
Right.
2 weeks ago, I had asked you, when we were meeting as a council, if you could provide us with the information we would need to make a decision on which path to take. Approve the permit with no mitigation, approve the permit with mitigation, or file a notice of appeal.
Correct.
I received nothing in the interim between the last meeting and this meeting on any of those three different avenues. So in my email to you, I said, it's surprising to me that in this vast amount of time, no one has come up with a mitigation.
Right, and see, I remain a little surprised by this. 2 weeks ago when you said that, I had no idea that you had any conception whatsoever that a full mitigation plan on this project would be drawn up in 2 weeks.
Well, it's not 2 weeks. You said it had been worked on the 8 months while the case was pending. There's the
Correct.
2 weeks plus the 8 months, plus the years and years after the public testimony. I would think
Correct.
that all of the professionals that the city assembled to give testimony at that hearing to benefit the SPGA during the pendency, who went out there and did studies and traffic studies, that resulted in nothing on behalf of the city? Nobody
No,
said
it
unrelated to
resulted,
the...
if you'd like, I will go upstairs right now. We can adjourn the body and I'll return.
Well, we'll decide whether or not to adjourn.
No,
the body.
I'll
I'm just-
finish my
you know,
answer,
it's-
please.
Well, I didn't ask you a
I'll
question, I made a
finish
statement.
my
You interrupted.
answer. You asked a
I did
question.
not.
You asked a question which is based on misperception. I'm trying to clarify it.
Okay.
I'll go upstairs, I'll bring down boxes. I can go from this rail to this rail with boxes of information that include all the mitigation studies. We, on the city side, were making certain requests and recommendations. Mr. Fang, on his side, made certain requests. He's got to pay for all this. He's got to agree to it. His principal representative, Mr. Ryan, whom I believe you know, he's out of the country. He's away. So
Has
we
he been
need
gone
to
for
sit down.
years?
Excuse me?
Has he been gone for years or just the past 2 weeks?
He's been, well, you understand, I believe, and I hope, that until the land court decision issued, we were all under the understanding the permit was denied. I hope you're clear on that. No one was working on mitigation
I know, but
while
we
the
know-
denial was under
I appreciate
consideration by
that.
the land court.
So maybe it wasn't mitigation
a
at
little
that
over 2.5.
Maybe it wasn't
I'm not
mitigation.
certain how to handle things, Madam Chair.
Listen, it's not a
Because I'm
filibuster,
trying to
Jim.
answer
You've answered my question,
questions.
I appreciate
And I'm
that.
being
gonna ask you
interrupted by
another
the
question.
gentleman who asked the questions and is clearly doesn't understand what's happening. I'm just trying to clarify, not just for him, but the entire body, what's happened here. So I just asked for guidance on how to proceed, because if
I'll
I'm
pose
not
another
going to be
question
able
to
to
you so there's no
explain,
confusion.
then
So
this is
what
going to be
I was saying,
remain a
Jim,
continued
what I-
problem
what
for
I-
the body.
what I was saying,
Go
Jim,
ahead, Councilor Palmucci.
what I was saying, Jim, is that it may not have been mitigation, but years ago, for years, I mean, when was the original permit filed? What was the date? At least a year.
I don't know.
Okay,
There was a denial.
fair to say it's been 6, 7 years, right?
How long's the matter been pending?
Since the initial permit was filed.
Since 2009.
So 2009,
Right.
so at least 6 years. When this body began taking testimony, it became very clear that there is a traffic and pedestrian safety issue in that area, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So unrelated to mitigation, when we studied this and studied it and studied it, I'm surprised that there was nothing put together by way of a plan on how to make things safer, unrelated to the C-Mart.
But why do you say that?
Because when I sent you an
That's
email, you told me you
absolutely
needed more
incorrect.
time to put together mitigation.
Correct. For this body to now consider with the issuance of a permit. That doesn't mean there were proposals that went back and forth.
Maybe I misread the remand word. It said reasonable mitigation. So if
Correct.
this, right, so it doesn't say it has to be by agreement with the parties. It just says it has to be reasonable.
You know.
Did I misread it?
Here, the question tonight is whether to file notice of appeal. The reason for that question is the reasonable mitigation, everybody involved, the land court judge, the applicant's attorney, myself, all the engineers who worked on this. And I'm hopeful that at least some of the members of the permit granting authority understand that's going to take time. We've got to sit down now and talk about what is it we're going to do. The applicant rejected a lot of the things the first time. And they did it because of cost and everything. We've gone back and forth. The land court judge's decision, in it, he takes certain positions on things. Well, that might cause us all to reevaluate. The mayor, Frank Tramontosi, and I went up and walked the site to look at certain things. There are a lot of impacts here. There's a whole street, there's a condominium there, Haywood Street, where people park in front of their condominium. There were supposed to be no parking signs up on all those poles. They were taken down for some reason, I have no idea. They came down in 05 or 06 and haven't been up since. Now, that came out of the trial, that there's an existing council order for parking signs. We have to go back over all things like that, review the landscape. Applicant's already made overtures about making some changes in his operation, proposed operation, that we would then have to take into account. But it's going to take some time, and I believe they're fine with that.
So just for the record, I want to state that the question I asked was, did I misread that? And that's the response I got. But I'll ask you another question.
Well, in
hold on a second.
fairness,
I'm
I
asking a
was
question.
trying
With
to
all due
answer
respect,
the
Mr.
question
Timmons,
when you interrupted me. You would have got an answer to that question if you let me answer it. But let's move along.
So the matter being considered tonight is not, there is no question on the floor, there's no motion on the floor for the appeal. The
That
agenda
is
states.
correct.
Right.
Madam Chair asked for a motion,
I did.
recognized you,
I'm
and
not
we
done
started
yet.
down
I'm
this
not
path.
done
I
speaking.
understand that.
I'm not done speaking. The agenda says to review C-Mart's application for development at 1040 Hayward Street. So it's not on tonight for a motion for an appeal. That's what you're asking this body to do. It's on for whatever this body determines to do. We have three options of paths that we can take. Approve the permit without mitigation, approve the permit with mitigation, or file a notice of appeal. We could do any of those three things. So I just want to I want that to be clear. That's not what's on the agenda. It's a motion for filing a notice of appeal. And let me speak to the notice of appeal. I have concerns about filing a notice of appeal for something that...
Councilor Palmucci, I think we need to just adjourn this aspect and then open the, and then come back to this because recess, because we are running over time from the public meeting. So we'll come back to it. Keep your thought, but I do want to get to opening the regular meeting.